Good evening. It's March 5, 2023, and I'm again here to make this short video about my reflection regarding the Pre Vatican II Mass. This matter has been in my consciousness way back in 2004. I think after I came back from Israel, and although I was although I had the opportunity of experiencing the Mass when I visited San Diego, at, I think it's in San Diego, but it's San Capistrano, something like that. I visited it, and there was this celebration. I was with then Father Mercado of the OMI congregation. He was visiting the US at that time, and a church acquaintance kind of invited me to go with them on to Capistrano. It's in Capistrano somewhere there. I couldn't remember the entire name, but it was there that I had my first experience with the Tridentine Mass, and back then it wasn't sanctioned yet. And although I have affinity with the Mass, but I hadn't had a chance to actually participated in one, except for that moment. Well, there's nothing different. There's nothing peculiar, except obviously the arrangement of the Mass, the Latin language is used, and therefore it's a little bit new at the time to me. And this it's like any ordinary liturgical celebration I think I've been with, because I don't I didn't actually feel anything different in so many ways, and it was just the same. And what I was inspired, or I had to reflect on, is this liturgy. There are a lot of things that I've read about it, but my understanding of liturgy, it is a simple prayer in so many ways, and it is a formalized way of prayer, which the church through the centuries has instituted, and it's rich in symbolism and meaning and everything. And but basically it is just a prayer in so many ways, and that's how I view it. And that's why when the issue recently that I am saddened also about the restriction imposed on it, and actually I was very much elated when when it was regularized, although I know for a fact it wasn't abrogated um, or rendered invalid by the Second Vatican Council. It was just uh, the hierarchy at that time and up to now just stop using it. It's not that it's not there, but my understanding it's still very much an expression of the Catholic faith, because the effort of the church to unify the herself in so many ways was brought forth through the liturgy, and pre the unification of the liturgical celebration, each sect or each group of believers actually back then has their own way of expressing their admiration, their veneration, and adoration of God, and that's why there is this diversity in the expression of that love for Him. And actually, liturgy in so many ways is an expression of humanity's love in a form of prayer, and that's why as each human is different from each other, there is this diversity that was created, and this was prevalent before the unification of the liturgical celebration that was instituted, I think, around 10th century, if I'm not mistaken. I was very much blessed to experience the liturgical celebrations of the different um, believers in the Lord. When I was in Israel, I was exposed to the Armenians, I was exposed to the Greek Orthodox, the Coptic, because these are the different groups that were residing or living inside the Holy Sepulchre, and that's why I was very much exposed to them when I was there. And in a way, there is this common denominator in those celebrations that this is only how I would like to describe it. It's like I radiate in so many ways. And I remember the time I was with the Armenians and they were praying, and I just felt very weird all of a sudden. I felt I was glowing of some sort. And that was only a prayer service. I think it's their it's equivalent to the Christian prayer that the Catholic prays in the morning, in the afternoon, or the evening, and I think it's similar to that. I just don't know if, because it was too long already, but I could still vividly remember and the feeling I had when I was with them. It took place in their church in Jerusalem, in the Cathedral of Saint James. And whoa, when I entered that place, it's very, very weird. The presence is very much the same in Compostela, Santiago de Compostela in Spain. When I visited it, it's very the same. And at the time, I didn't know the the history of the place. I just went there and I only realized it when after it was already in 2010 when I returned that I've already very much done my research, and I discovered that the head of St. James is there and tradition says, and I visited it and prayed also, and also that same feeling was in the Wailing Wall. But I think it's not because of the Wailing Wall. It's because of some persons who were at the Wailing Wall at that time, and I believe they are somehow very much related to that presence of which is in the St. James Cathedral, where the Armenians actually are residing, and their headquarters is located in Jerusalem. And that's why when I see the Armenians, they are very much, I don't know, I feel so at ease with them when I visited them. And I didn't expect that they would actually tour me. I was just, ordinary person, just strolling in but the extended kindness, and for that I'm very grateful for them because I had the chance to tour their place, their factory, and it was so wonderful. I felt that I was really welcomed, and it's a different feeling when you feel that. And that's why I realized that, and then I realized that there's a connection of some sort to Compostela because the presence. And when I visited Compostela in 2008, because I visited Israel in May, and that's when all this happened. That was May 2008 when I visited Israel, and had a chance to visit the first time. It was a very, I think mystical is the word, because I felt at home. It's so weird. I have all these things so new to me, and yet I feel so at ease in that place, and as if I've been there, and yet it's my first time, and then I realized that it's similar to the place in my dream when in 2004, after I finished my stay at Abu Ghosh, I stayed at the old city for the very first time. And at that time, I had this dream, and the dream was about this church, and it's very similar to that church, the St. James Cathedral of the Armenians, where St. Francis of Assisi, based on what I heard, stayed until they were able to find their own place when he initially visited Jerusalem. And what was so weird about this dream is that I was with someone, I was talking with someone, and that's why it's similar to the church, because I had to go go down in order to enter because the door is very small, and the place is just very similar to my dream, and the altar is elevated, and in my dream, in the first night I spent at the old city, I was staying at Casanova at the time, and I was actually there, I think the altar is very much the same because of the step-like altar. And mind you, it was only in 2008 that I had seen that. And it's really, I think that is really the church in my dream. Because in my dream, I was shown there, and then there was this celebration of some sort, and all of a sudden, the entire place was filled with incense. And they were like what I, but back then when I had that dream, I didn't see how their liturgy was. But it matches the dream because my dream, there was this cleric who went out of the door. There are two doors at the end of the altar, and they go carrying incense. And then what's so weird is I found myself in front of the altar, stair like altar, and I have these two, I think they were also praying, these two persons beside me, and then all of a sudden this stair like altar became illuminated. It was like very bright, and then all of a sudden I saw a human, the light started to become to form a human image, and then they were like descending from somewhere, and then they were going towards me. You know, it's so weird. This was in 2004, and then all of a sudden they were going down, and then they were happy to see me. I don't know why. And they were going, and they have this, it's like they have wings of some sort, you know. The light is forming when they're coming closer already to me. I could now see an image of a face, but from afar it's just like a silhouette of light, you know. And like they have this, you know, and they were descending, you know, towards me, and I was just frustrated, you know, because I feel so beautiful, and at the same time fearful, nervous, anxious about what's happening, you know. And then there's this the entire altar was illuminated, you know, because it matches exactly the one in my dream, although obviously that was what 4 years after, you know. So but I wrote about it, and then because in the dream the altar became like illuminated, and then all of a sudden the center of the altar there was this stair like image, and then there was the opening, and then there's this light, silhouette lights descending towards me, and that's basically the dream. And that's why when I visited the in 2008 that church, I was reminded of it, you know. And I felt really very much connected to the place because of that dream. Because also the apps, because there was this, when in my dream there was someone who was talking to me and showing me all these things, which in so many ways happened also because the Armenian cleric there, I think he has some position or something, because it's like a monsignor in the Catholic religion, and that's why I'm not really very. I really had a very good chat with him because he really taught me. But the problem is I was wanting to visit the Church of Saint Michael, the Archangel, but they said that it was being renovated at that time, and that's why it was closed. I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that's basically my exposure with the liturgy of the Armenians. The Coptic is because they celebrate their liturgy at the back of the edicule at the Holy Sepulchre, and I had always I was always there, so I would always pass by. And then the Orthodox always has the liturgy also, and I was exposed to that also. And what I experience is that there's this common denominator, that there's this part of me that is so happy in so many ways. As I wanted always to be there, because there was a part of me that is always happy when I'm there, even though the circumstances of my staying there is not that comfortable, because I had to work, I had to volunteer at Enkerim, because I really wanted to stay in 2010, and it was a beautiful moment, and that's why I've always wanted to be there. And going back to the liturgy, it's being exposed to this liturgy actually gives me the insight of how diverse man's expression of his admiration, thanksgiving, and adoration of God, and it's kind of disheartening also that the mass that was celebrated for over half a millennia after the Council of Trent was somehow abandoned in so many ways, and a lot of this modern innovation has been introduced, and I don't know. My reflection on this was way back in 2004. After I came back, I was really very much inclined to, revert to the old rite, actually, because I think because the liturgy was not part of the reforms that was initiated during the Vatican Council. It became, there were, based on what I understand, there were people or personalities who, in so many ways, used it to further their agenda regarding the liturgy, and that's why there was this liturgical reform that was instituted when it was not initially part of the plan or the agenda at the time, and it's really disheartening because I felt there should be a return to the old in so many ways, right? And because, for one, theologically speaking, it's I'm in favor of I've always been in favor of when the priest should not face the congregation. The priest should um, be with the congregation in so many ways, leading the congregation, because that's how I understood, or how I was inspired to understand that in celebrating the liturgy, the minister or the presbyterium or the priest actually is exercising is one of his function, and in doing so, he is actually um, bringing together the entire church, and that's why when he raised the Eucharist, he should be facing not the people but heaven in so many ways, and to emphasize that he is one, and to get and he is one with the church, composed of the different faithful present, and he's exercising his duty. And that's why this was the only thing that I felt was very much off with the current celebration, because it doesn't jive with the theological at least my theological understanding of the priest's duty, and by facing the by facing his back facing everyone, the faithful, it's emphasizing that he is one with the faithful, and he is bringing the prayer to God, and that's basically his duty in so many ways. He is our Lord, because our Lord is the only intercessor that we could actually that who's actually interceding for us, and every intercessor is actually exercising only his ministerial office in so many ways, a ministerial person. And that's why even the Blessed Mother is only exercising her son's intercessory blessing or power or authority. She doesn't have that on her own, and I think that should be emphasized. And like the Blessed Mother and all the saints, the priest, in exercising and celebrating the Mass, is actually interceding and bringing the prayer, which is his duty. That's why I don't know who invented the and what's the basis for having the priest pray facing the congregation. It's very as I've been inspired to understand, it's not theologically sound in so many ways, and it actually diminishes the character and dignity of the priest in some way, because he's facing the congregation, and his duty is actually to lead, to gather, and to bring this offering to God. And that is not emphasized or underscored by the liturgical actions conducted or performed now in the current form of the Mass. And I feel even back then in 2004 that should be practiced. And that's why when the motu proprio of the regarding this was issued, I was very much elated, as I said, because it's really what I prayed for in so many ways, because I know the reality, the structure now, it's there, and it's been in use for what, since this 1969, or almost, yeah, over 50 years now. So it's there, but the thing is, I'm saddened by the action taken, because it creates a rupture, when you try to suppress it, my understanding is that that form has not been repudiated or abrogated by the Vatican Council. Neither has it been rendered invalid by any actions taken by the one who sits on the chair. So, my understanding, it is still valid in so many ways. And I feel this efforts to restrict and to do all these things and put so much obstacle in so many ways, for just celebrating that, as if there is something wrong with it, and that is something I could not comprehend what the reasoning why such imposition was placed, and mind you, this was the liturgy for over half a century, half a millennia actually. And it's basically very much an expression of the Latin identity of the Western Church, which has been diminished by having this Mass in the local tongue. My understanding is that, yes, because I know the people would be very much in practice when they know and understand everything. But the thing is, liturgy is not a my understanding is liturgy is not a product of reason, it's a product of the spirit, and therefore whether it's in Latin or in some other language, it nourishes not the material but the soul. And that's why the argument that so that the congregation or the people could relate and well, yeah, on a cognitive level, yes, but on a spiritual level is the question, because the liturgy is the way by which nourishments of the soul are actually conveyed and imparted, and the faithful, as far as I understand, was supposed to understand it, because the way it currently is, it was the Western identity of the church has been diminished in so many ways, and the unity which has which had galvanized the church. The reason why there was this suppression of the other liturgical rites at the time was to foster unity, and that's why the Tridentine Mass, which was the Mass that is being discouraged, or a lot of obstacles and restrictions are being placed for its celebration, has been developed or has been formulated in so many ways. And I felt that the Karen, I think the actions taken by those who've instituted this, shall we say, innovation, failed to, perhaps they forgot, it's not the mind, nor it's not the cognitive aspect of the human person that is being nourished during the celebration of the Mass. It is the soul. And the soul is it transcends language, it can comprehend anything, because it has a different level of understanding, and that is only of the divine, because the soul, as I mentioned in my other video, is divine. It's a gift from the divine, and therefore to make the celebration as a means of physical and mental to reduce to that level is what has happened actually in the reforms that was done, and it has taken away that nourishing aspect, that the soul actually needs. It's when, because it's like when in liturgy, it is when the grace or the through prayer and whatever is happening, I'm not too sure of what's taking place, but it is the process by which in so many ways the soul is healed. And that's why language, this and that, has no bearing to it, because it is only the divine. And that's why the innovation which was instituted are very much taking that away. In their effort to modernize. That's why when you go to church and you go to a Protestant service, it's more or less the same. More or less. And I think that's why the identity of that Catholic identity has been diminished. Because whoever was behind all these machinations in the 60s that instituted all these things were very much wanting to make the celebration similar to those in the Protestant, which the Catholic identity is not that. When you compare liturgy now to the liturgy of the ancient liturgy, which is being practiced by the ancient churches, it lost its identity, and that is why it's very sad that which embodies the identity of the worship of those who are in the West is now being rendered like something that is illegal in so many ways, when in fact, if I'm right, it is that form that should be celebrated, and not this innovation, as I call them, because I'm still very much not into it as far as I was made aware and conscious of after 2004. The Western Church's identity was diminished by the innovation instituted by those persons. And I think they're still continuing. They're trying to suppress it. What are they afraid of? That's my question. What are they afraid of? Are they afraid of the celebration taking place in that is being more effective and valid? And that's why, in order for them to legitimize the innovations that they have made, they suppress it. I'm not questioning the validity of the current liturgical practice because it was in so many ways adopted by the church, but neither can I deny the validity and the efficacy of that right which they are trying to restrict. And that's my point. And I hope those bishops who are now empowered to grant permission, would you imagine centralizing everything? It's really very telling, you know. I hope they would, allow. That's why the motor proprio was issued. It is to give so that there is no rupture, no dichotomy, no division in the practice of the church. One is ordinary and the other one is extraordinary, they say. But mine is both are the same and equal. It's an expression of one's faith. And if someone wanted to express their faith in that form, then why restrict them? And if they want to express it in this form, then I don't see the logic and the reasoning behind restricting it. In restricting it, you are trying to impute something which shouldn't be there. What is there to be afraid of? That's the question. If the current Mass is valid, why? Why suppress the other one? That is the only thing that is such a very, very thorny issue. And I hope those bishops who would be able to hear this would consider having this rite celebrated without any restrictions. And I hope the Dominicans actually should always celebrate it because more or less this is their right in so many ways. Because it's one of them who formulated it, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So I hope that this restriction, this unnecessary actions stops. Thank you.